Hey everybody, this is Nick Perry from Nick Perry and the Underground Thieves, and you are listening to the Hook Rock Podcast with Jay Scott. Rock on.
Hey, what's going on, everybody? How are you? How you doing? What's happening? Hope you're doing well. This is Jay Scott from the Hook Rocks, the Ultimate Rock Community Podcast. Welcome aboard to another episode of great music commentary, music interviews, whatever it is with rock and roll. We've got it for you. We're talking about it. We're discussing it. Great feedback from the previous episode with, it might not be the previous episode when this airs, but the episode we just dropped, the NFT cryptocurrency episode, which is a really volatile market right now, and how that's long-term, how the long-term impact is going to affect the music industry. So check that out when you get a chance. Got some great interviews in, previous to this show too as well. So go ahead and listen to those. You can hear all of the previous Hook Rocks podcast episodes wherever you podcast: Spotify, Apple, Pandora, wherever, Amazon, Google Podcast. Subscribe to us wherever you get your podcast so you can hear all the latest episodes and have access to all those old episodes as well. And we always do drop the latest episode a few hours before I drop it on social media. So you get early access to that. Write us a review if you have a chance. And also check out my fellow podcast family members on pantheonpodcast.com, the network of music podcasts. You can follow them on Twitter at Pantheon Pods. They're available on Facebook at Pantheon Podcast and their website, pantheonpodcast.com. Like I just said, you can hear other podcasts as well, like Cobras and Fire, Shout Out Loudcast, Vinny Appice, Carmen Apiece, Mistress Carrie, Martin Popoff, and many more. Always a great platform. Excited to be a part of that family. Like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter, and once you do all that, you're all set. I think I'm going to be starting an Instagram page, or I do have an Instagram page, but I've got no content, like zero content. So if you hear this episode and you go to Instagram and you search the Hook Rocks, there's not going to be anything on there. But I'm thinking like July 1st, launching like a daily diary of just thoughts on new music and what's happening in music. Just like 1 minute or 2 minute snippets, nothing too, involved or in depth, but just sharing my daily thoughts that may creep into my mind on what's happening in the music business. And there is a lot going on, and we have a great conversation all lined up for you with the repeat offender. Kaz A from the Heavy Rock Show is back on the Hook Rocks, and I'd like to welcome her back. What's going on? How are you?
Thank you. Thanks for having me. Glad to be here. I'm good. Looking forward to summer and live gigs.
Yeah, right. It's upon us. It's happening. I know, there's been some hurdles and some setbacks here lately. We had a festival here in the middle of June all set to go, which is like about 20 minutes from me in Hoffman Estates, Illinois. And they were going to have Hailstorm and Chevelle and Dirty Honey and Miles Kennedy. And it got canceled because of ticket sales. So I don't, I still think people are nervous, to go out into large groups of people. I still think that's going to be a little bit before people get acclimated and kind of rewire themselves to, feel that they're okay. So that was a surprise that it got canceled, but hopefully, there'll be more shows to go to, down the road.
Yeah, I just caught a small one with a band called Foxjaw, and the guys that opened up for them were Blue Stragglers, who I'd never heard before. So it was like, going to this first live gig in over a year and then hearing a band that I'd never heard before, and they were just amazing. I mean, the pent-up energy between the audience and the bands was just absolutely mad. It was great. It was so fun.
Yeah, the fun is almost upon us. I think, like I said, I think it's going to take a few months for people to get acclimated and to kind of wire themselves that it's going to be okay. If you're vaccinated, you'll be fine. I just think it's just going to take time. And, we were gone on lockdown for over a year. So it is upon us. The light is getting brighter and brighter at the end of the tunnel. So just keep that in mind every time you get frustrated. Remember that.
Yeah. Exactly.
But we got a big topic to talk about here today. This has really transpired over the last week and a half, couple of weeks. You could probably speak better on it than I can, because I'm just reading snippets on Twitter and social media about what's happened. It's something that I'm shocked is happening because, as you will explain, it shouldn't happen. And there should be a better process in place to verify things and to confirm things like copyright and trademark than there currently is with the largest streaming service, or one of the largest streaming services that we all know, and that is Spotify. I'm going to give you the floor, and you can go ahead and start where the beginnings of this situation happened and where we're at and how it happened. We'll talk after that. So go ahead and explain what the topic is on this copyright issue that small indie bands are having.
Okay, so basically, a couple of weeks ago, I started seeing posts on Twitter from thrash metal and a couple of others talking about a couple of bands that had their music taken off of Spotify because somebody had made a false copyright claim against their music. Basically, what that means is they were saying, "Oh, that's our music, and somebody stole it, and you need to take it down." And Spotify, this is the thing. I have to back up. So apparently, the way it works is Spotify gets a copyright infringement claim and sends it off to the distributor, and then the distributor allegedly takes it down. So Spotify says that they're not the ones that are taking down the music. Now, I just don't know what's true and what's not at the moment. But that's, had their whole catalog wiped off of streaming platforms. So, of course, they wanted to know why. Well, then later on, then last week on, I think it was the 3rd of June, or earlier than that, 12 Years Today, who's a band that I play a lot. In fact, they open up my show every week. I have a lot of time for these guys. They made a comment on Twitter that when their Spotify radio or something, one of their playlist things disappeared from their Spotify page. And they were like, oh, well, maybe it's just one of those things and it'll be back and, maybe it's just a glitch. So we didn't think too much of it, but I had messaged them and said, do you think this has anything to do with these other two bands? And they said, no, I don't think so, because the other two bands apparently had been threatened by a so-called agency who was trying to basically extort them into using their services or whatever in exchange for giving them the music back and taking relinquishing the claim. And so 12 Years Today was like, no, I don't think so because, we don't use any of those companies and, we don't do that kind of stuff. So, I don't know. So then on the 3rd of June, all of a sudden, their latest single, which they just released last month, and their latest EP, which is also a recent release, disappeared from Spotify. But they didn't know this because, they don't check Spotify every 5 seconds. But they have a loyal group of fans, and the fans were like all over Twitter going, hey, you guys, where's your music? It's gone from Spotify. What's going on? So then they go to look at Spotify, and you can imagine the horror they felt when they saw this, because what they do is it gets grayed out, right? So all those tracks were grayed out, and nobody can play them. So needless to say, the fans were apoplectic. 12 Years Today was apoplectic. I was apoplectic. And 12 Years Today, of course, contacted Spotify right away saying, hey, what's going on? And so Spotify responded with their auto response thing saying, oh, well, we've had a copyright infringement claim against your music. And we sent it off to the distributor and you need to talk to them. Well, their distributor is CD Baby, who, everybody thought was pretty reputable. So they tried to contact CD Baby, and to date, they haven't, as of right now, they have yet to hear back from them, which I think is absolutely disgusting. So then they tried to get a hold of Spotify again, and they just, ran rings around this whole thing, trying to get a human being to respond. And all you get really is a bot response, So Spotify's like, oh yeah, we're working on it. And, we just put you in, we sent your message to the artist, Spotify artist thing, and they'll sort you out. And, we're doing things behind the scenes to work this out for you. But still, the music's still not there. CD Baby has yet to get a hold of them, and they're just stuck in a holding pattern. And first of all, there's always going to be some asshole out there that is going to be malicious and, is jealous of the band or whatever and wants to be nasty and will file a claim against their music. That's a given. But what needs to change is the way that the streaming platforms and the distributors respond to this. Because that's the other thing. The distributor, CD Baby, they put you through this whole process of verifying your copyright and your ownership to the music or whoever is whoever owns it and all that kind of thing. So CD Baby knows that 12 Years Today owns their music. So you can see where it's like dealing with the tax man, but the tax man's customer service is better. So I think they make it like really complicated so that nobody has to take any responsibility. So Spotify blames the distributor and the distributor, sometimes blames other people or whatever. And in this case, they just are silent. So right now, we're just waiting to hopefully hear back from CD Baby and get this thing sorted out.
So 12 years. So 12 Years Today has the copyright, right? They have. Yeah, they can prove that they have the copyright.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. They wrote the music,
Well, writing the music is one thing, but do they have those songs registered under copyright?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. See, that's the thing. Like they have it registered. Like if you go on like certain social media platforms like Twitter, no one can file a copyright claim, or Twitter won't investigate a copyright claim unless you can show proof of the copyright, right? So if I were to go on Twitter and say, I want to file a, copyright claim against this entity, they would be like, your next step would be to show proof that you own the copyright. Okay.
Exactly.
And if you can't show proof, they're not going to investigate it. They're just not. So
well, that's confusing because CD Baby knows that they own their music, so they got the whatever the code is. In fact, I think Jason or James, one of them sent they sent the information to Spotify saying, here's the information. And then Spotify basically bounced it back and said, we need to talk to the distributor. Well, where the hell is the distributor and why haven't they responded? And it's been all over Twitter, we've made a lot of noise. So I'm so frustrated with the whole thing. And like I said, there's always going to be some jerk out there that's going to try and stir the pot, but it's up to the stream.
It's a matter. I mean, that's essentially theft, right? If someone files a false copyright claim and claims it's theirs when it's not, and has your music taken down as a result of it, or whatever it is that taken down, I mean, it's essentially, theft. And has 12 Years Today talked with an attorney? Have they been advised by an attorney on what to do?
Not that I know of at the moment. I mean, that's the other thing. A lot of these bands are, people that
are vulnerable.
Are trying to, Well, yeah, and they're just starting out. 12 Years Today has started out in 2018, and then everything happened with lockdown and blah blah blah. And it's amazing that they've gotten as much done as they have. But they also have like day jobs. A lot of these bands do. Not everybody is like a rock star riding around in a limo. You know what I mean? So and they poured all their money and their heart and soul into recording and mastering and releasing music and all the rest. So, but that group that we're sort of chatting with. That was really helpful because I passed that information on to them. So,
the Groove Council, yeah. No, everyone on there is great, and there's also we've got an attorney in there. For those that don't know, offline, Kaz and I belong to this group called the Groove Council, and it's just a bunch of us on Twitter who like new music and discuss new music, and we pretty much 90% of the time stay on the topic of music. But there's some good people in there. I know one of the members is an attorney. And I know Christian Eagles is in that group, and Chris Corradetti is always, shooting his mouth off about Greta Van Fleet and how much he loves them and how much he loves the new album and how he puts it under his pillow at night when he sleeps. So he's really, really in tune with Greta Van Fleet. So, but getting back to the conversation at hand, how did they get involved with this? I mean, it sounds like the entity that's making these false claims are, some bad people, right? Some people that are people are always using technology to benefit them in, ethical ways and unethical ways. So how did they get swooped into this? Do they have any idea or clue as to how?
No, that's what's really weird about it, because the other two bands definitely were threatened by a certain organization. And I'm not going to say who it is because, I'm not in that fight and I don't know enough about it to, but anybody can go on Twitter and figure it out. Anyway, that is a real issue. But with 12 Years Today, there was no indication that was the case. They didn't have any communication with those people. So I don't know. And that was the other thing, because I think they asked Spotify, they said, well, at least tell us who's made the complaint against us. And they said, well, your distributor has to tell you. Well,
so they don't know. Right. They don't know if it's in fact the same organization. They just think
no, we don't. Yeah, we don't even think it is. We just don't know. So nobody really wants to pin their colors to that mast right now because we don't know. And, we don't want to be bandying about false accusations about somebody else. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So,
And when's the last time they contacted CD Baby?
I think yesterday.
And they still haven't had a response yet. That's
no.
Crazy. Now,
it is crazy. Disgusting.
Was it over email or was it through a phone call? How did that contact or attempt to contact them work?
As far as I know, it was over email, over several emails, and they've heard nothing back. I don't know that much about CD Baby, so I don't know. Some of these places, they don't really give you phone numbers,
Yeah, that's the...
Excuse me. So,
that's the crux of it, right? I mean, that's really
everything's online.
You know, and because they don't want to be bothered, and they don't want to have people calling them, and you know, if they call them, then they have to respond. But yeah, that's just amazing that they don't respond like that, especially with an issue. And of course, you know, the hard truth of it is that, you know, 12 Years Today and these other bands are small bands, like you said. You know, they aren't the big names. So, you know, if this was a big name, this was a big name and someone made a false copyright claim, they would not have taken down their music. They wouldn't have taken down Beyonce's music or AC/DC's music or wherever or whoever.
Exactly. It's not like somebody could go, "Hey, that Foo Fighters song is mine," you know? Like, that's not going to happen. And even if somebody did it, they've got an army of PR people and lawyers or whatever that can just like nip it in the bud. Mm-hmm. So
I didn't know Spotify distributed the music through CD Baby. How does that work?
No, CD Baby supplies the music to Spotify.
Okay.
Because they're the distributor, the music distributor for the band. And the band has to go through a really strict process to authenticate, you know, ownership and all that stuff. Because, like, if a publishing house owns the copyright or whatever, you know, then they are attributed. Do you know what I mean? But, you know, this is definitely 12 Years Today. It's theirs. So, and it's just insane. And the thing that I find really frustrating is, okay, Spotify says they don't take down music, you know, that somebody else does, the distributor does. Well, that might be true. I don't know. But it just seems to me that they should have some kind of a better organized system in place so that when this happens, you know, it's not like you're just going down rabbit holes and getting nowhere. Because the other two bands, and theirs, you know, theirs is a real serious situation because it is somebody was trying to extort them, really. And they're still, you know, trying to deal with it. So it's crazy. There's got to be a better way. I mean, it's not rocket science, is it?
When you say extort, define that. Well, what was that situation?
Okay, so basically what happened with them, well, one in particular that I know of, they were asked to use this company's service, and the company basically claims that they'll get you like loads of streams on streaming platforms and blah 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 for, you know, X amount of money per month. So you're supposed to pay them to up your music and get noticed and all this stuff. And so the band basically said, no, you know, we're not into that. That's not how we roll. And the guy got pissed off and he started threatening him. And, you know, he said, I mean, there's stuff on Twitter where he's got the screenshots and he's saying things like, you know, I'm going to get all your music taken off of every streaming platform and, you know, I'm going to ruin you and all that kind of thing. And then the copyright claim happened. So, you know, which is so vicious. It's just so vicious. But like I said, even leaving that aside, the issue I have is how do the streaming platforms and the distributors deal with this? And that's where the ball is being dropped.
Right. Absolutely. You know, there needs to be protocols in place where if someone does make a copyright claim, and I would think most of the time when someone does that, they're legit copyright claims. And
well, you would think.
Right. And then you just, you know, they'll say, you know, attach this form, attach your proof of copyright, and then you send it, and then they do whatever they need to do with it. But to just say that I own the copyright of it, one of two things has happened, right? One of two things has happened. Either A, they supplied a false copyright document, which is fraud, okay?
Yeah.
And or two, they didn't have to supply anything. Both are bad. Both are bad. One is, exactly. You know, one is a fraudulent claim. Well, they're both fraudulent claims, but one's using a fraudulent document. And then the other one is just knowing the protocols for CD Baby or Spotify or whoever it is and using it to their advantage. The problem is that Spotify is saying it's CD Baby. It very well could be CD Baby. CD Baby's not responding. the result or the solution to this problem, so this doesn't keep happening, because I'm sure these aren't the only 3 bands who have had to deal with something like this.
Oh my God, I did a bit of research and it is rife. I mean, it happens all the time.
Right. So why can't they put it? I mean, it's got to be a simple process. All you do, like Twitter has it on their, on their rules and regulations, or filing a complaint. It has it on there, like what you need to file a copyright claim. The same should be for Spotify and CD Baby.
Well, I think Spotify has a form that you fill out to do it, but everything is these automated forms, and then when you finally get a response, it's from like a bot, using like ridiculous pseudo rock language. I mean, it's almost embarrassing, really. The way they talk, it's just like, oh, come on, you guys, pull the other one. And then the other thing that's really weird about this is, okay, so their music was pulled off of Spotify and Amazon Music, right? But it's not pulled off of YouTube or what's the other one?
Apple?
Yeah. So if there was a copyright claim and the CD Baby thought, yeah, that's a legitimate claim, they would have pulled it from everywhere. Why pull it from only 2 streaming platforms?
That's a good question.
That doesn't make any sense to me.
Yeah, it doesn't make any sense. I don't know. Unless at the direction of, I don't know. I don't want to speculate because I'm probably wrong, because I don't know enough about this. But that is an interesting question as to why it's only pulled off of, is it pulled off of Pandora? Are they on Pandora as well?
I don't know. I don't even know what that is.
It's like an Apple. It's like a Spotify. It's kind of like, I would say, maybe a little less in terms of the level. It's probably around Amazon, or maybe a little less than Amazon. It was like, I think it was the first streaming service years ago.
Oh, okay.
But,
well, the thing is as well, this band, so they started in 2018. They've been involved in music on and off for years, but they just hooked up together as a duo. And, they really, in that time, especially just over the past year, they've really started to grow a fan base, and they've got some really loyal fans. I mean, they're, the people that follow them on Twitter are just like, let me at them. They're ready to go kill Spotify. And, some of their fans even put together a fan page for them on Facebook. And, their music was really starting to pick up and get some streams, and they were gaining momentum. And this was just like such a kick in the stomach. I mean, you can imagine it just knocks you for sick, Just,
That's the question, though. Like, if it's happening to bands frequently, indie bands, low-level bands in terms of popularity, it's just a simple fix. It really doesn't take much. I mean, I don't know if there's any legal recourse, someone can have for a copyright infringement. But if you just put it on your rules and regulations, or filing a copyright complaint, and it basically says that, whether it's with CD Baby or Spotify, that you have to show proof. You have to have the document, and the document for copyright, has a stamp, from the Copyright Office, the Trademark Office for the U.S. government. I'm sure every government has it. Every country has it. It has that stamp. It has that seal on it. So, it's a pretty legit thing, and I would imagine it's hard to make a counterfeit document like that. I'm sure people can. People are always finding ways to work around the system and do things they shouldn't do. But it's got to be, hey, I've got this, and this is the date that we copyrighted. This is the form that we use. This is the approval that we got from the trademark office or whatever office Canada has. Because 12 Years Today, they're from Canada, right?
Yeah, they're based in Toronto, or Toronto area.
Right. So, I mean, they have to have something that does that or has that, and they've got to get proof. And, I don't know if they did it themselves or they hired a trademark attorney to do it for them. But again,
that I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Again, the issue is, if a claim is made, okay, the person making the claim, the burden is on them to prove that copyright is theirs. They have to have the documentation. And that's like with
Exactly.
and it's like that with anything. You make a claim that someone assaulted you. You make a claim that someone stole something from you. The burden is on the accuser to have the evidence that this really happened. And I was really assaulted, or I really had this stolen from me. So it's always like that in any case. So I don't know what the process is, because I've never had to deal with Spotify or Apple, or not Apple, I'm sorry, CD Baby, and go through this process with them. But I mean, I keep bringing up Twitter because it's the social media platform that I use mostly. And,
me too.
you know, you can't just willy-nilly file a copyright claim because you're pissed off at somebody. You can't do that, you know?
Otherwise, people would be doing it all the time.
Can you imagine? And that's why Twitter probably does that, is because they probably didn't do that in the beginning, and they had this influx of copyright claims, and not half of them, 95% of them were probably BS or someone just trying to be a jerk. And, you know, they probably said, no. In order for you to proceed with this, or in order for us to investigate, we need to have, a copyright, a proof of your trademark or copyright, and it's even too as well. I mean, if you go to an attorney's office, a trademark attorney, and you say, I want to file a copyright infringement claim, the first thing the attorney is going to ask you is, okay, where is the proof that you own the copyright? Well, it's not mine. I'm just going to file it because I know this person doesn't own it. The lawyer's going to be like, yeah, I got better things to do. Exactly. I'm not going to go run with this because I don't know. It's just there's a question of ethics. So if this entity that's done this before is now doing this to 12 years today, which we don't know because we still haven't found out who filed the copyright claim, and hopefully
we don't know.
CD Baby does supply that. It's just you're kind of stuck in the middle. Hopefully this resolves itself, because you'd like to think things that are wrong or things that are right that are wronged get right eventually. I mean that's the whole hope and fingers crossed, because a young band, that's trying to make a name for themselves, that's trying to make music, that's trying to build their fan base, this really does hurt them. I mean, there's other, there's
devastating.
I mean, this is devastating. I mean, Spotify is a large platform. Amazon Music is a large and growing platform, and, if you think Amazon Music is happy being number 2 or number 3 in streaming service, they're working their hearts out, or whatever they call it. They're working their ass off to become number 1 eventually, which Spotify and Apple kind of claim right now. But this is devastating for a young band. And if it doesn't,
it absolutely is.
And
it not only it knocks their confidence, it screws up their fan base. It screws. It's like when you're accused of anything, and then it's just awful. It's just awful, and it makes me just so angry that this could just get this far. It should have been nipped in the bud like 2-3 days ago.
Well, it's not so much the way I view it. It's not so much being accused of something. If you know you're right and you have the document to prove it, that should be the least of your worry. I think if I was in 12 years today, or if I was a band that was affected by this, my stress would be that anyone can just do this and have no recourse.
I think that is the stress, exactly.
Yeah, I mean that's stressful in itself, knowing that someone who gets a bug up their ass and who wants to be vindictive and get back at somebody goes ahead and does this just willy-nilly, just because they're playing this game of I can pee farther than you or whatever. Yeah. I mean, that's just that's the stress there.
And they're such nice guys. They are just such nice guys. And they've worked their socks off, they really have. So one thing that I think is quite positive is that, a lot of the other bands that have been made aware of it have been quite supportive. Like Coranima is just like totally has their back. Dichroma, a lot of those bands. They're small bands too, and they know that it could happen to them. But they've been really supportive on Twitter and stuff, which I think is great. So thank you, bands.
Well, do the other bands that had their music taken down, can they prove that this entity is the one that in fact did that?
And I think one of them can, because he's got screenshots of all the DMs and stuff.
Well, screenshots are one thing, actual proof from whomever took the music down or wherever, having that entity name in that email exchange or somewhere and shows that, right? Because that helps.
I don't know. I don't know, because I don't know those two bands really. I don't know much about them. I only was alerted to it because of the thrash metal threads on Twitter a couple of weeks ago. But remember in the Groove Council when Christy was asking, or somebody was asking, is it somebody? I'm not going to say who, but you'll know who I mean. That's who it is.
Well, I just would think that if the bands that have had this happen and that they can all get proof that it's this entity, right? You can build your case. You can build your case more if you have more people. If your band D and bands A, B, and C have all had this happen, and they all have the email or the document that says this is the entity that filed the copyright claim against you, and then band B says the same thing, band C says the same thing, and then when they get the information back from CD Baby, 12 Years Today can say the same thing. Then they can, they're stronger together instead of just being singular. So then they can go to, CD Baby, and they can go back to Spotify, and they say, hey, listen, we're 4 bands, and yes, we're new bands, we're emerging rock bands, and we're trying to build our fan base, but this happened to us, and this is the common thread amongst us. Right, this is who did this, and this is who did. That you have to change your policy, or else this entity is going to keep doing this to other bands. Yeah,
exactly.
So that's what I would advise. I mean, I'm not an attorney. I've played one on TV, and in 2 previous lives before I was, I did practice law. I'm just kidding. But that's what I would do. I would advise to work together and get that proof that they did do that.
If it ends up to be that same entity, then they definitely will. But we just don't know who it is right now, so they can't.
Yeah, I mean, hopefully they're all working towards getting that info. When did the other bands have their stuff taken down?
I can't remember. I think it was a few weeks ago.
Okay, so this is all recent stuff.
It is, yeah. But when I looked on Twitter or on Google, because I was trying to find out, what the policy is and all this stuff, I mean, the amount of people that have said, yep, this has happened to me, and, it's just like a nightmare. And I don't know. And some people, don't have the resources to go hire an attorney, and maybe they don't have the resources to just be as astute. I don't know, and you feel sorry for them. But so my mission in life right now is to get as much information and get as much information out there so that bands are aware and to somehow get these policies addressed, because I think that has to change.
Now, you're doing an article for Emerging Rock Bands magazine, right?
Yeah, I was so chuffed about that, actually.
Don't be stressed. So, you stop being stressed. Relax. You got this.
No, I was really happy because I have a lot of time for them. And I was really flattered that they even approached me to ask me to do it. And the reason that they did that was because they know I'm close with the band. So, but they've played the band on their radio shows, and they did an article in one of their magazines for one of their issues about the band as well. So they asked me to write an article about the situation, which I did on Sunday, and I emailed it to them, so it'll go in the next edition. It's just short and sweet and basically says what I've talked about with you without naming streaming platforms and CD Baby. But my issue, my main focus of the article was to say, we need to get this changed. We need, there needs to be a better way to deal with these situations when they happen. So, but yeah, yay for Emerging Rock Bands magazine and radio station. I mean, like I said, I was so chuffed that they asked me. I was so flattered. They're great people, and they really are champions of the rock community and emerging bands. They do exactly what they say, and not all those people out there do.
Well, I think it's important for emerging rock bands, the publication, the radio station, the social media, to really get behind this, because their sole focus is promoting new music. And when you have a situation like this, bands want to know. Bands like 12 Years Today and the other bands involved, they want to know that there is a community out there that does support them. And I believe that's happening. And I think when an entity like Emerging Rock Bands gets behind something like that, because they're, like I said, their sole focus is doing that. I mean, I do new music spotlights and I do other things, but Emerging Rock Bands is really where it's at when it comes to new music in the UK and in other parts of the world too. So it's a very strong voice in the community that's helping them, and you're being a part of that, and you're having you to write that article when you're not even affiliated with them says a lot about them, and says a lot about where their hearts really are.
It says everything about them, because, I mean, I'm only one show, but my show competes with one of their shows every Friday and Sunday night, So, they don't have to give me the time of day, but the way they look at it and the way I look at it is, we're all in this together. We're all trying to do the same thing. We're all trying to get these bands heard and played on air, and if it means that you're listening to this station instead of that station, I don't care. It doesn't matter. The point is getting the music out there and raising awareness. So, I have just like a million everything time for these guys. I think they're great.
I agree. This is a community. Rock is a community, and we're all in this together. We're all trying to, get rock and roll to thrive again, and to be, a popular genre of music, and to be relevant again. And a lot of us do different things, and a lot of us have different ways to communicate our love for new music. But at the end of the day, we're all trying to do the same thing. There is no right way. There is no wrong way. And again, kudos to Emerging Rock Bands, and thankful for you for putting in the time to do this, because it does matter. It matters to the young bands, because I know when you are a struggling artist and you're a struggling band, you sometimes don't think that you have the support. And you feel like you are on an island and you're just by yourself. And, as this subject grows and the knowledge of this subject grows, the idea that more people will get involved in a positive way is going to be very helpful, and it's going to help that confidence in the band that, hey, the community has our back. Yeah.
I wish. I'm pretty active on Twitter, as you know, but I'm only one voice, and I don't know like the tricks of trying to get things to, blow up on Twitter. I mean, maybe it's just the luck of the draw. I don't know, but I really want to make this I want it to be a thing. I want it to be a subject that people suddenly are aware of and start talking about.
Well, we are talking about it, and I've got a small slice of a small pie, and hopefully people do connect and people do listen to this, because I've always said that somewhere, the right thing that's being done will always be elevated and will always correct itself. And sometimes it takes longer to do than other things, right? Sometimes there are travesties and there are people being wronged, and you're just like, I can't believe that continues to happen. But I always believe, and maybe I'm naive in thinking that sooner or later the right way always wins.
Yeah, I'm an optimist that way as well. Definitely.
So what's 12 Years Today? What's their next step? Is it just a waiting game right now?
I don't know, because I haven't heard from them much today because, there's a big time difference. So, and they work, they've got jobs. So, they're like juggling that and families and all the rest of it on top of everything else. So I will be looking at my Twitter and we've got a group as well, just like the group council. We've got a 12 Years Today group, that's like the same kind of thing. So, and the fans have been amazing, and they've just been like, Spotify, look out.
Here's an idea for new bands that are struggling to get a fan base or slowly building a fan base. And they get these emails from these services that claim that they can get their music on all these platforms and it'll increase your streams and all that stuff. I have never used a service like that. So I don't know if it's actually true that it can happen. I don't know if what they're selling is a bag of goods or if they can prove their success. I don't know. I'm not familiar with that. So I'm not going to speak to that. I will say to the bands out there that are listening and that are afraid of this happening to them or tempted to use services like that. What you do is when you're shopping your music around to PR companies or management companies and you're trying to get representation, you're trying to get a management company, you're trying to get a PR company, that in itself is difficult. And I totally understand that. But here's how you improve just by getting the feedback from those PR firms and management firms. Let's say you get rejected, which is more likely to happen when you're starting out and you're trying to build a fan base. They're going to say, we're not interested at this time. That's probably going to be the standard response most of them give you. Here's where you get it to work in your advantage. What do I need to do to get you to be interested? And that's the obvious response, right? But here's what they're going to tell you. They're going to tell you, well, you need to increase your followers, your traffic or whatever. Then you say, do you have any ideas of where I can get help doing that? And if they start referring you to those types of services, then maybe there's something to it. If they don't refer you and they say, well, hey, you know what? Here's a lot of bands use this, a lot of bands use that, a lot of bands do it on their own, a lot of bands do this. That's what you need to do. Whatever they're telling you in the feedback as to where you need to go and how you need to do it, that's the key right there. Anyone else can claim that they can build all this stuff and do all those things to you, but how do you know if that's true? You don't want to spend $100 a month, $200 a month, or whatever the cost is, and get nothing in return.
Yeah. And I mean, reputable companies will also, on their websites, they will have contact details that are like legitimate contact details. And they'll also, you'll be able to search the company and find out if they're a limited company or an LLC or whatever. And, here in England, we've got Companies House, and you can look up a company easily enough and find out if it's legitimate. I would imagine you have something similar in the States and in the Commonwealth. But, a lot of these fake things, what they do is they put together their website with, false testimonials and all that kind of stuff. But when you look at the bottom of the website, there's no way you can find, where they're actually located. There's nothing. And and if you do a search on the company and nothing comes up in Companies House or whatever it is, wherever they're based, then that's your first clue that, they're not legit. But a lot of people just think, they don't bother to look. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. And a lot of times PR firms, farm out, or management companies farm out, social media developers and social media, promoters or whatnot. And there's legitimate ones that are out there. You just got to be careful with the scams. And, when you're a new band and you hear someone's dangling that carrot in front of you, it's really hard to turn that down. But you have to do your due diligence. You have to really study these things and know who's legit and who's not. And I know that's hard because people, dangle things in front of you. And then also too, I have seen some of the text exchanges or the screenshots. I'm always, of a firm believer that, if someone's trying to get you hooked on or sell you on something on one of their goods and you're not interested, just type 2 words, not interested or not interested at this time. Don't try to handle something with conflict or something that, can be taken as, being belligerent or whatever, confrontational, because you never know who's on the other end of that screen. You never know what their motivations are.
Yeah, and there's a lot of crazy people out there.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Well, what I found interesting as well was another band that I'm in touch with. I was having a chat with them about this whole thing. It's not happened to them, thank God. But I was saying, gosh, it'd be really helpful if you would retweet this tweet and, that kind of thing. And they said, yep, happy to do it, but have to say it makes us feel wary, because we don't want to be targeted because they're just starting out as well. And their feeling is, they don't want to draw attention to themselves in that sense. And do you see what I'm saying? It's like, it's almost like a double-edged sword. And it's just so frustrating. I mean, they did in the end, they were really supportive and that was great. But I understand their feeling of trepidation.
Yeah. And to have someone out there that doesn't respect the work that these young bands go through, to even start a band, to write music, to create, to record music, to be on social media, to build your audience one person by one person, one by one, to go ahead and do that it is really shitty. I mean, worry about the people that you have as clients and worry about the people that, you have on your roster, rather than people that don't want to be on your roster at this time or are not interested in your product. Move on, man. Move on.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I'm very interested to see what happens with the other 2 bands as well, because, they were definitely being threatened. And I mean, I think that's extortion, isn't it? What the guy was trying to do. So, that's got to be against the law, right?
I would think, again, I don't know. I haven't read it, I guess also too, proof that they did it is important. That's why it's really probably the most important thing for all these bands that have dealt with that right now is to get that confirmation of who did it. Because until you get that, you can speculate. You really can't go after any entity unless you have that information, because right now it's just a thought. It's just, I think someone did it. They may be right in which entity did it, but you need to get that proof. You really need to have that email exchange where it says, this was the copyright claim, this is the date it was filed, and this is who filed it. And,
I think that should be transparent from the word go.
Absolutely, it should be. It should be. I mean, as long as you have proof and you have the evidence to back it up, to back up your claim, that's what you want to do. But, until then, right now it's just speculation. So, you just got to wait that out and get that information, get that factual information. Because once you have it, then that's the power. Because like I said, bands A, B, C, and D, if they all have the same issue with the same entity filing these false claims, it makes the case stronger, their case stronger. It makes Spotify think that they need to revisit their practices, and makes CD Baby think that they need to revisit their practices. And who knows if they do or not? I don't know. Sometimes these big companies, they don't care. But
well, see, that's the thing that's so weird about it, because CD Baby is usually thought to be pretty reputable. In fact, another guy on Twitter was saying that I think he's got a podcast or something where he has been slapped down by CD Baby for copyright infringement until he was able to prove that the band, said he could use the music or whatever. I can't remember exactly what it was, but basically he said their policy was really strict. So I'm just flummoxed as to why, number one, they haven't gotten back to the band, and number two, why they would just take this on board when they were the ones that authenticated the band in the first place.
Yeah, that's really strange.
Makes no sense to me.
Makes no sense, and makes me think that there may be something that's in between that they're not being told, or they're not, someone's not sharing that with them. Because if CD Baby, how I would be running the company if I did, or running any company that distributes music like that, if I made bands go through a regimen of copyright process and trademark process, and I knew I had that on file with every band that I have, that I'm distributing their music. It's just a matter of pulling up the information that I made them go through in the beginning and saying to this person that's making this copyright claim that based on the information we have, your copyright claim is not applicable to whatever entity that you're making the claim against due to this. That should be step one if they have all that information. So that's why, unless, again, I'm speculating, I don't know, unless they had a false document that counteracts or goes in the against what they have to make it seem like they are the legit holders of the copyright. That's the only thing that I can think of, because it should be clear cut. If CD Baby does in fact make these bands go through a regimented process of making sure their copyrights are right.
The bands have to pay for that.
Yeah, I mean, so that leads me to believe that there's something else that they're not being told, or there's something else between two entities that they're trying to work out. Well, this is a copyright claim, but we've got it backed up. But it's still a copyright claim, but we've got it backed up. So there might be some internal discussions going on between, the two big forces at play, and hopefully that gets settled. But that's probably where, I mean, that's the only thing that makes sense to me as to why CD Baby hasn't responded. And, because maybe they're like, we've got this, but then this other group is saying this, and then Spotify is telling us this. So there's a lot of things that they're trying to probably figure out.
Yeah, I think that's a logical assumption, actually. It's just, you would think that they would at least get a courtesy email saying we're looking into this.
Yeah. Customer service these days is the equivalent to dog shit, but most entities have a horrible customer service, and you get caught in these email loops. Like I had an issue with my podcast like 2 weeks ago. I had one of the platforms that my podcast appears on was not uploading the newest episode, and it was like a day or two, and I'm like, why isn't it uploading? So I sent an email to support, and I'm like, okay, I'm waiting. Nothing happens like the first day. So then I went into the RSS feed of the platform, and it had my old RSS feed from when I first started. I'm like, why does it? I'm like, I'm not even on that platform. I haven't been on that platform, and gosh, I don't even know when's the last time I put an episode out on that platform. Why does it still have it? So I switched it to the current RSS feed, and within an hour, the site, the episode came back up. But my point is that I didn't get a response from that platform till like a week later. It's like a week later. It's like, what are you doing? It's like, I'm like, well, please let us know more about this difficulty or this complaint that you're having or the issue that you're having. I'm like, I don't need to. I already fixed it.
Yeah, I got my phone nicked a couple of weeks ago, and I had to call the phone provider, the network provider, and get it blocked, obviously. So I did that, but there was all this rigmarole. But I wasn't able to supply certain information, like you have to give them, your magic name or whatever it is. And I couldn't remember what it was. And I was so panicked because I wanted to make sure that the phone got blocked, And so they said, well, when you get home, call. I'm like, I can't because I don't have a phone. It got stolen. So when I got home, I ended up going on Twitter and just said, hey, O2, this happened, can you help? And I was blown away because they said, DM us. So I DM'd them, and they sorted the thing out in 10 minutes. I was so impressed. And that was just like some person running their Twitter account. So, sometimes people do the right thing.
Yeah, some people do, and
it was heartening.
well, and then when you do get, into these customer service loops, you get transferred from one center to another. You got to re-verify yourself every single time. They just make it so difficult for you to really contact somebody. Sometimes,
like I said, I think some of these things are designed to be really complex and convoluted so that nobody has to take responsibility, and people get fed up and they just go, "Oh, I can't be asked to do it."
For sure. Absolutely. It's not just that you think. That is the truth. That is absolutely what happens. So, but anyway, when is the article drop for you and emerging rock bands?
I don't know. So I think it was going to press on Monday, so yesterday. So I would imagine when I was doing my magazine, it usually takes a week to 10 days, depending. So it'll probably be out at the end of the month, I would imagine.
And what's your last contact with 12 Years Today? Where are they at with everything?
The last post that I saw was that they were still waiting to hear from CD Baby, and that Spotify had responded, the bot. I call it a bot because it doesn't sound like a human being the way they respond. Basically saying that the Spotify artist was looking into it. And, if there's anything else we can do to help.
You just respond. You don't really mean that. Come on. You have no interest in helping me.
I know. It's just ridiculous. And they're like, "Oh yeah, we're working backstage on this." I'm like, "Oh, fuck off." It's just really.
You're just like, no, you're not.
Let's try and be all rocky cool,
Yeah. Well, let's revisit this. Let's keep this going. Let's spread the awareness. Let's keep talking about this until there's a resolution, until there's changes in this, because that's what's needed. Yeah, but let's keep this, this subject alive. And, once the emerging rock bands article happens, blast that out, and we'll retweet it and do what we need to do too as well. But it's something that everyone that likes rock music, everyone that loves music needs to support, because this is not right. And I'm hoping, I got my fingers crossed, that the wrong that is happening will be righted at one point, or sooner.
This is another thing that was really weird. So 12 Years Today did a cover of a Pink song called "Who Knew," and I've never heard Pink, so I don't know the music. I like the cover because it's rock. They've done it rocky. But anyway, so they did a cover. They had all the permissions and all the stuff that you have to do to be able to do a cover legally. And that one didn't get taken down.
That one didn't?
Yeah. Isn't that interesting?
That's really strange. So that one's still up.
Yeah. And some of their older stuff is up as well. But the most recent stuff, their EP and their recent single, Unveiled, is not. So, yeah, I just think it's interesting that only certain things were targeted.
Certain songs, certain platforms. Yeah, it's crazy because you'd think that, the other platforms like YouTube or Apple would follow suit, if in fact it was the distributor that pulled the music. But we're going to continue to follow it. We're going to continue to talk about it and follow it, and hopefully the right resolution is made.
Yeah, and big thanks to the Groove Council, because I did hijack that thread a few times.
That's what we're there for. We're all there to support each other and find out and help each other, and listen to Chris Corradetti, and his love for Greta Van Fleet is also a bonus.
That's the first time I've ever heard Greta Van Fleet was when he put that YouTube clip up of the
guy the reacting of it. Yeah, Christy and Eagle did that. It's a great song. It just proves, how right Chris Corradetti is in his love for Greta Van Fleet in the new album. It just proves that he is on top of his game and has impeccable taste in music. But just because of his love for the new album.
I'll have to listen to it because that's the only thing I've ever heard. Really,
check it out. Yeah.
Well,
you gotta listen to it, and
I'm already having anxiety about quarter two.
We'll get it. Yeah, we all are. But we'll definitely have that out, and we're excited to do it. There's some big albums coming out yet here at the end of June, and hopefully they'll be on the list too as well. So,
yeah.
All right,
Well,
Kaz.
thanks so much for giving the platform for this. This is so important, and I appreciate the fact that you care so much.
My pleasure. And like I said, we'll do recaps on this. I'll do updates. At the beginning of the show when I'm doing new episodes, just people can continue to follow it and continue to hear what's happening and find out what the resolution is. So, thanks, Kaz. I appreciate it.
Excellent. Thanks.
All right, everybody, that's Kaz A from the Heavy Rock Show, East London Radio. Her new article inside the new emerging rock bands on this topic will be hopefully coming out soon, I would imagine within the next couple of weeks. So look for that. Also, check out new episodes. Hopefully we'll have recaps and resolutions for you. Like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter, subscribe to us wherever you get your podcast. We always appreciate any feedback that you can give us in the form of a review. Stay safe, stay healthy, stay strong, and we will certainly talk again soon. Thank you.